It's 1952. I'm 37 years old. I'm in a coffee shop, not Manny's, though I still go to Manny's, though Rita still refills the cup without hovering, and the corner table is still mine by unspoken agreement. This is a different place, on a different street, a place I found 2 years ago when I moved to a different apartment. Bigger, actually. 2 bedrooms, which sounds like extravagance, and is a little, but the second bedroom is a study, and the study is where I work. And having a room where the work happens has changed the work in ways I'm still discovering. I want to tell you what happened. Not everything. 5 years is a long time, a whole person's worth of time, and fitting it into one conversation would compress it into something dishonest. But the important things. The things that grew from that week in November 1947. The Monday through Sunday, the audition, the callback, the Jack conversations, the Elise studio, the geranium, all of it. Let me tell you where it went. The callback. I went back on Tuesday, November 1947. The navy hat, the rehearsal room that morning, the warped mirror, all of it. Samuel Rubin was in the room again, the casting associate. And this time the producer was not present, which is, in the specific language of callbacks, a good sign. The producer comes to the first round because he needs to see what he's paying for. If he's not at the callback, he's already been persuaded, and what's happening now is the director doing the real work of deciding. I did the scene again, different from Thursday, not better exactly, but different in the way that matters. The way that comes from having lived with the material for 5 more days, having turned it over in the sleep, having had the Sarah who stands up straight moment in the waiting room, and the man on 6th Avenue and the Sunday chair. I did it from a slightly deeper place. The right place, but deeper. He stopped me in the middle. When a director stops you in the middle, it can mean 2 things. 1, it isn't working and he wants to redirect. 2, it is working, and he wants to push it further. He said, "Do that again, but this time," and then he said something specific, a note, a direction, a request for a slight shift in a moment that I had been playing one way, and he saw another way, and the other way was right. It was more right than what I'd been doing. I did it again. I did it his way, which turned out to be the right way. Which turned out to be something I could only have found with someone who saw it from outside. This is what good directors do. They show you yourself from an angle you can't see from the inside. When I finished, he took off his glasses. He said, "Thank you, Miss Lane." Same line as before, but the fraction of a second was different now. Now it wasn't a fraction. It was a full second. A full second of him looking at me over the table with the expression of a man who has found the thing he was looking for and is noting its location. Harriet called the next day. I had the part. The picture was called Evening Star. It was not a prestige picture. It was not the kind of thing that gets reviewed at length in the serious publications or discussed at the kind of parties where people discuss serious things. It was a studio picture. Tight budget, 9-week shoot, a story about 2 women navigating a city, which is a description that could sound like anything, and in this case, turned out to be something genuinely good. I played the one who knows things, the one who looks like she knows something, because that's what Samuel Rubin had been looking for, and that's what he found in me. And the watching of the film, I've seen it twice, which is about my limit for watching myself. The experience of seeing your own face on a screen is one of the stranger available experiences, and I recommend it in small doses. The watching of the film shows me exactly what he saw. A woman who has been through something and hasn't been broken by it, and knows the difference between those 2 states. That's what Rubin saw. That's what Jack said they were looking for. The picture was released in spring 1948. It ran for 3 weeks in New York and then went wide. 20 cities, the kind of modest distribution that a modestly budgeted picture gets when it's solid and not spectacular. Reviews were mixed, which for a first film in a leading role is a kind of success. Mixed means people noticed you enough to have opinions. Dorothy, the front desk Dorothy, called me after the reviews came out. She said, "Vera, I've been here 12 years. Here's what mixed means. They're paying attention." Dorothy is very good. What happened after the picture? The picture opened a door. Jack was right about that. The metaphor was correct, if not about which door. I thought the door would lead directly to more pictures. It led instead to the room where Margaret Crane was waiting. Margaret Crane. I told you about her in 1947. The director downtown doing new work, the small space, the women in her productions who were actual women rather than arrangements of plot and costume. I had said, "That's the open door." I hadn't found it yet. In early 1949, she called. She had seen Evening Star. She had seen what I'd done with the part, specifically what I'd done in 3 scenes that Ruben's direction and my preparation had made something real. She called and she said, "I'm doing a play about 6 weeks. Are you available?" I was available. I made myself available. I rearranged things I had and didn't have to make myself available. The play was called The Distance Between, Clara Marsh's play. The monologue I'd been working on in the rehearsal room, the one I'd been preparing for 2 weeks and had not yet gotten to the place where the thing lived in me rather than me hunting it. Clara's play, the full play, finally found its production. And Margaret Crane was directing it. And I was in it. I was, specifically, the lead. The woman who waits in the way she can't always identify. The woman who says, "I've been waiting so long, I can't always tell when I'm waiting anymore. It just feels like Tuesday." We ran for 6 weeks as planned, and then another 6, and then another 4. And then a theater uptown wanted us, bigger stage, more seats, and we moved and ran for 3 more months. Clara Marsh came to see it 4 times. After the 4th time, she came backstage and she said to me, "That's what I heard when I wrote it." That's the highest thing anyone has said to me in my professional life. That's the thing I'll carry. Jack. Jack is in Los Angeles. He went in 1950. A specific opportunity. A director who knew his work, a picture that needed exactly what he had and wasn't going to wait. He called me the night before he left from the bar on 52nd Street, one last drink in the usual spot. And he said the things he said in the way he said them, which is to say he said very little that was explicitly sentimental and everything that needed to be understood. He said, "You're going to be all right." I said, "I know." He said, "Not because it's going to be easy, because you know how to do the work." I said, "So do you." He said, "Different kind of work now." And we sat with that for a while, the way we'd always sat with the things that mattered. Not trying to solve them, just sitting with them, letting them be what they were. He's doing well in Los Angeles. I hear from him occasionally. A letter, a phone call, the trades. He's working. Not the sun, I told you, he's a planet. But a planet that has found its specific orbit and is doing something real in it. I miss him on Tuesday evenings. Not with grief, with the specific fondness of something that was exactly what it was supposed to be, for exactly as long as it was supposed to be, and is now located somewhere else in the geography of a life. I hope he knows. He probably knows. Elise. Elise had her first real show in 1950. A gallery in the village, not a tiny one, a real one, the kind that reviews happen to. The show was called Interior Light, and it was 32 paintings over 2 years of work, and every one of them was I'll say it the way I said it in front of her canvas in 1947. It changed your breathing. The reviews were not mixed. The reviews were, with one or two exceptions, the kind of reviews that an artist waits their whole life to receive. Not because of the praise, though the praise was real, but because they showed evidence of actual looking. Of someone standing in front of the work and receiving it, rather than classifying it. Elise called me after the first night. She said, "It happened." I knew what she meant. The thing we'd talked about in her studio. The proof. The making, the contact, the evidence that it went somewhere. It had happened. Someone stood in front of her canvas, and their breathing changed, and they would carry that change out of the gallery and into their life. I said, "Of course it happened." She said, "You don't have to say of course." I said, "I always knew." She said, "I didn't always know." That's the honest version. That's Elise. She's working on something new now. She won't tell me what it is. She says she doesn't describe the thought before it becomes the painting. I respect this. I wait. My father. He opened the door. Not all at once. The door in my father doesn't open all at once. It opens the way he does everything. Slowly and with deliberateness, and with complete commitment once the decision is made. It started in the summer of 1949. We were having our Saturday phone call, and I was talking about something, some detail of the week, and he got very quiet in a way that was different from his usual quiet. Not the quiet of listening, but the quiet of something arriving. He said, "Your mother would have liked that." He said her name. Not in a past tense sentence about an event, in a present tense sentence about a quality. Your mother would have liked that. The present tense of someone who is still, in the mind that matters, present. I didn't say anything right away. I gave it the space it needed. Then I said, "Tell me something about her." He said, "What do you want to know?" I said, "Something I don't already know." He was quiet for a long moment, and then he said, "She used to sing when she thought no one could hear her. In the kitchen, early morning. She thought she was quiet. She wasn't quiet." I said, "What did she sing?" He said, "Everything. Whatever was on the radio the day before. She had a good memory for songs." And that was the beginning. We've been at it since. Saturday after Saturday, the stories coming out slowly, the way things come out when the timing is finally right. Not flooding, not dramatic, just steady, the way water moves when the channel is clear. I know my mother better now than I did when she was alive. That's the strange gift of it. The conversations we didn't have while she was here had now, through my father's memory, through the kitchen singing and the Saturday mornings and the things she said and the things she didn't say, and the specific way she loved her husband, which my father describes with an accuracy that tells me he's been remembering it all along, has just been keeping it somewhere private until he was ready. He's ready now. I'm grateful. The other thing. I told you on Sunday in 1947 that I wanted to fall in love again, that I believed in it, that the wanting was alive. His name is Thomas. I'm not going to tell you the whole story right now. The whole story is its own week, its own 7 days, and I intend to live it fully before I report it. But I'll tell you this much. He's an architect. He designs buildings, which means he thinks in the language of space and structure and what it means to make a thing that endures. He has, in my experience, which is now 2 years of experience, an almost preternatural patience. Not the patience of someone waiting for something else, but the patience of someone for whom the present moment is sufficient, who does not require the future to arrive faster than it comes. He came to see The Distance Between 4 times. He came once because a friend recommended it. He came a second time because of the play. He came a third time because of me, specifically. And this time, he came backstage. He said, "I want to ask you something." He asked me something. I said yes. That was 2 years ago. We live now in the 2-bedroom apartment on the street I moved to, the one with the study where I work. His drafting table is in the living room. In the mornings, we are both working in our separate rooms, and occasionally one of us comes to find the other, and there is coffee and a brief interruption, and then we go back to the work. It's the Tuesday morning version, the one I described on Sunday. The one with the newspaper and the coffee and the dailiness that is still, in the ordinary texture of it, chosen. That's what it is. What 1947 was, from here. I've been in 1952 for 11 months now. 37 years old, the 2-bedroom apartment, the work and the Thomas and the Elise, and the Saturday calls with my father who sings my mother now in his memory. And I look back at that week, the specific, granular November week I've been telling you about. And what I see is this. It was the week that everything was possible. Not the week that anything was decided, not the week that the outcomes were determined. The week before the outcomes, when everything was still potential, still in motion, still capable of going any of several directions. The audition not yet certain. Jack still on 52nd Street. Elise's paintings not yet shown. My father's door not yet open. Thomas not yet existing in my life. Everything's still possible. That's the quality of 1947 from 1952. The wideness of it. I spent that week not knowing what I know now, and the not knowing was... It was hard, as I've said, hard in the way that things that matter are hard. But it was also the specific richness of a life that is still being made, rather than a life that has been made. The richness of standing at the edge of something before you can see its shape. I would not go back. I want to be clear about that. I'm not sitting here in 1952 saying I wish I were in 1947. I am here, in this coffee shop, with my better apartment and my study, and my Thomas, and my Saturday stories about my mother's kitchen singing, and I would not trade it. But I remember what it felt like. I remember the 60%. I remember the Monday at Manny's when I said, I know some things. I know what it costs. I know what it costs to want something for a long time and keep going anyway. I knew. I carry it still. One more thing. The last thing. Mrs. Petrova died in 1950. She was 81 years old. She died in her apartment, in her own bed, which is, as deaths go, the right kind. The kind that happens at home, in the right place, with adequate time to have arranged one's affairs, including one's geranium. She left the geranium to me. I don't know how she knew. I don't know what the arrangement was, whether there was a note, whether she told the super, whether it was an official bequest or simply understood. What I know is that 2 days after she died, the super knocked on my door and handed me the geranium. He said, "She said for you." It's in my window. The new apartment, the better one, the 2-bedroom with the study and Thomas's drafting table. The geranium is on the windowsill next to Mrs. Petrova's plant, the one she gave me on that Sunday morning in 1947, the one that does well in low light. They're both there. They're both still going. The one that does well in low light does particularly well. It's grown considerably, spilled over its pot, had to be repotted twice. Every time I repot it, I think about that Sunday morning when she knocked and held it out to me with the manner of someone who has made a decision about giving. "For your windowsill," she said. "Yes, Mrs. Petrova, for my windowsill. That's 1947. That's what it was, and what it became. Thank you for the week. Come back whenever. There's always another one."